Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss the real stories of betrayal, revenge, and family secrets that unfold behind closed doors. Today's story is a dark, slow-burning tale of love, power, and the consequences of a careless joke. It was a crisp autumn evening in Prague, the kind where the cobblestone streets glimmered under the amber glow of street lamps and the Vltava River whispered secrets to anyone who would listen. I had invited our extended family over for dinner, a rare gathering in our sprawling, slightly decaying townhouse on the old town's edge. The air smelled faintly of roasted chestnuts and the spicy warmth of mulled wine. Candles flickered in brass holders, casting long shadows over the worn wooden panels. We laughed and talked, the conversation drifting from mundane family anecdotes to the subtle tensions that always simmered beneath polite smiles. I, ever the provocateur, decided to tease my husband, Marcus, in front of everyone. Leaning back with a playful smile, I said, "You know, sometimes I think I deserve a new husband. Someone who actually notices when I've redecorated the living room." There was a beat of silence. My laughter rippled across the table, but Marcus didn't move. His face was perfectly still, pale and unreadable. Then he said, in a voice so calm it felt like ice sliding over fire, "Maybe you should find one." The room froze. Even the youngest cousins, barely 10, paused mid-bite. My own fork hovered inches from my plate. The words were not a joke, not even slightly. They were a sentence, a verdict, and the way he said them, cool, detached, unflinching, cut through the warm family atmosphere like a knife. I forced a laugh, masking the flicker of fear that shot through me. But later, when the guests left, the house silent except for the wind rattling against the tall windows, I realized Marcus meant every word. That night, I lay awake in our bedroom, staring at the ornate ceiling, replaying the phrase again and again, each repetition a drumbeat in my chest. Within a week, he moved out. Not with shouting, not with tears, but methodically, silently, as if he had been planning it for months. Our friends murmured, our family whispered, and I was left in a liminal space of disbelief and humiliation. He left no note, no explanation, only the trace of absence that seemed to echo through the halls of our home. I could have cried. I could have begged. Instead, something deeper awakened in me. Anger, yes, but also a meticulous clarity, a recognition that if I wanted answers, I would need to see the full extent of the deception I had ignored for years. Marcus's coldness had exposed a truth I could no longer avoid. Our marriage, and perhaps my entire family's social facade, was built on subtle betrayals and unspoken resentments. The first step was Prague itself. I began retracing Marcus's routines, talking to colleagues under the guise of casual inquiry, visiting the cafes and bookstores he had frequented, the art galleries where he lingered over paintings with a detached appreciation that always annoyed me. Everywhere I went, I found fragments of him, echoes of what had been, and shadows of a secret life that he had kept meticulously separate from our home. Through these inquiries, I met Lena, a friend of his from university. She was sharp, elegant, and suspiciously candid. Over coffee in a narrow cafe tucked between Gothic buildings, she revealed the first layer of the truth. Marcus had discovered something, a hidden ledger, evidence of my father's embezzlements and manipulations of the family business. Not only that, but he had confronted Marcus, offering bribes and threats disguised as familial advice. "He couldn't stay," Lena said, stirring her cappuccino. "He couldn't be part of it. And he couldn't let you inherit the same poison." The revelation stunned me. My father, a man I had idolized, was not the patriarch I had believed him to be. The family fortune, the ornate townhouse, even the connections that had seemed like benevolence, they were built on deceit, intimidation, and betrayal. Marcus had left because he knew I would never forgive him for being complicit, or because he feared that by staying, he would implicate himself in the labyrinth of corruption. I returned to the townhouse with a new purpose. If Marcus's absence had revealed the cracks, then I would exploit them. I began gathering evidence, bank statements, business contracts, correspondence that painted the family in shades darker than I had ever imagined. I learned the language of discretion and subtle confrontation, speaking with distant relatives and business associates in measured tones, careful to expose enough to create unease, but never enough to alert anyone fully to my investigation. Months passed. The seasons shifted. Prague's gray winter melted into the fragile bloom of spring. Marcus's presence, or absence, became a constant phantom in my life. He would occasionally send cryptic messages, a photo of a place he knew I would recognize, a note of something mundane that carried a weight I could not decode. Each message was like a puzzle piece, teasing me, keeping me tethered to him, even as I orchestrated my revenge. Then came the confrontation. I had learned that my father planned to manipulate the board of our family business, securing control through underhanded tactics. I arrived at the company headquarters, a glass and steel monolith that had always intimidated me, armed with the evidence Marcus had helped me assemble. The board meeting was tense, the air thick with anxiety as I laid out the documents, each paper a hammer blow to the edifice of deceit. Faces that had always looked down on me were now pale, frightened, unsure. The patriarch himself trembled as the ledger revealed embezzlements, threats, and betrayals, the extent of which even he had not realized I had discovered. Marcus appeared then, quietly entering the room, the coldness in his eyes unchanged. I understood, in that moment, that his leaving had been a gift wrapped in ice. Without him, I had grown into a force he could not have anticipated. I did not need his protection. I did not need his guidance. I had become the arbiter of justice, the executor of truths that had been buried beneath polite smiles and golden frames. The aftermath was surgical and public. My father was removed from the board, legal consequences pursued with precision, and the corrupt elements of our family business dismantled one by one. Marcus stayed in the background, never claiming credit, but silently approving the structure of my revenge. I never reconciled with him fully, never asked him to return to the life we had once shared. That life was gone, irretrievable, and I had no desire to resurrect it. In the quiet moments, when the Prague streets were empty and the city lights shimmered on the river like broken stars, I thought about the night I joked about a new husband and the ice-cold reply that had changed everything. I realized that the joke had not been trivial. It had been prophetic, a mirror reflecting the fractures in our lives that I had been too blind to see. The coldness, once terrifying, had become the catalyst for my awakening, my slow-burn revenge, and my reclamation of agency. I walked along the river often, the sound of water against stone, a reminder of persistence and inevitability. I had learned to wield patience like a blade, subtlety like a shield. The houses along the embankment, the narrow bridges, the wind that carried whispers from centuries past, they all bore witness to the transformation I had undergone. I had survived betrayal, exposed deceit, and rebuilt my life from its ashes. And in that, there was both victory and loss, a mingling of grief and triumph that would define me forever. Marcus's absence, once a void that terrified me, had become a canvas. On it, I painted strategy, patience, and revenge. And in the end, the joke about a new husband had revealed the deeper truth. Sometimes, the people we love are the ones who ignite the fire that teaches us who we truly are. The night settled over Prague once more, fog curling around the spires and alleyways, and I finally allowed myself to smile, a small, knowing smile, tempered by ice, sharpened by experience, and strong enough to face whatever would come next.